Let's go to business news now, and I've got such a magnificent intro that I feel like I should read it out. A survey has found most people think non-standard accounting measures can help shed light on a company's financial performances, but others think they're just a way to cover up a poor result. Let's start, Nona, with non-standard accounting measures. What they actually are. Who wrote that?
Well, this is a very complicated report here.
Well, I'm going to lean back while you explain it.
Alternative performance measures. And what are those, you might ask?
I did.
You did ask,
Yeah.
So people have heard these, potentially they've heard these EBITDA, EBITDAF,
Yeah.
normalized earnings. People, what are these terms? Well, believe it or not, those who use these types of financial results to, study companies, 88% of the people surveyed thought this was really useful information.
Right.
Yeah, they like this sort of non-standard measures of accounting to see how a company's actually doing. But most other people, their eyes glaze over, have no idea what these things mean. So what is earnings before interest, tax, amortization, financial instruments, or foreign currency? It could mean anything. And that's the thing. There is no standard of what these things mean. And so companies will throw this sort of stuff out. But then...
And do they throw out the stuff that best suits their purposes?
Well, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best suits their sales pitch.
And everybody's different because, for example, Sky City, they have normalized earnings based on the run rate of their high rollers business. So they assume a win rate of 1.3 or just a ratio. It's a sort of but at least it's consistent. Other companies, they just throw out an underlying earnings number and you're like, oh, well, what's in that? Oh, well, you don't really need to know. Actually, yes, we do. So a lot of companies are using these kinds of numbers and
non-standard measures.
Non-standard measures, and some people think, 88% think this is very useful. But about 12% think it's absolutely not useful, and it's really just there to add some
So who
gloss.
decides? So who is sitting there saying, actually, let's get one measure so that it becomes meaningful across, or is no one having that conversation?
We have one measure. It's called, Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. GAAP is what it's known as for short. And it includes things like net profit. Okay, so what's that? Bottom line. That's the one we usually report. Sometimes we report, in our reporting of company results, we'll use other measures to give some context, but that's usually because the companies have provided that as a way of explaining, say, a poor result.
And let's use an example that we had this week. Xero is a really good example of that because they don't have a net profit. They're still not making a profit.
Right.
So they want to sell a whole lot of other stuff entirely, right?
Exactly, because they don't want people to focus on the fact that they don't make a profit. They want people to focus on the fact that they're moving towards a break-even position. And we hear that a lot with tech companies. This is one thing that they aim for, to move towards a break-even position. But, a lot of companies that are in growth mode spend a lot of money. And so they look at their underlying earnings. This is like before, they've paid their tax. Of course, if they're making a loss, they're not paying tax necessarily. But yeah, so there's all this non-standard accounting. Now, interestingly, we have a board called the External Reporting Board that looks after all of this stuff. And they did this survey to find out if people thought it was useful. And since people do find that it's useful, they're now going to work out what kind of standards they can bring in over time that will make these underlying earnings more standard. We'll see what happens. There's an interesting...
yeah, it was. Thanks, Nona. Thank you for explaining that, and beautifully explained. Right, what happened on the markets at the end of the week?
Well, actually, quite a lot.
Oh, okay.
As a matter of fact, yeah. Global stocks hit an all-time high. Following the U.S. Federal Reserve, Janet Yellen's testimony where she thought that maybe the U.S. economy wasn't going to grow as fast as Donald Trump thinks. Yeah. And as a result of that, the dollar kind of wavered a bit. And so our dollar held on to its overnight gains. It's really high. It's 73.2 U.S. cents, 94.5 Australian, and 56.5 British pence. On our index, the NZX Top 50 Index, very high, not right just off our high, all-time high, but really Asia is very strong. We rose about 0.5% by 39 points to 7,650. So pretty big week.
Thank you, Nona. Have a fantastic weekend.
And you.